Good evening. I am so pleased to see you all again. This is a very good evening to all our viewers and our listeners. This is a very special Christmas edition, hence my sparkly talk. Anyway, we are in for a treat. This is the series 4 of the One-to-One Mentoring Conversations. My name is Susan Ozer. I'm the founder and CEO of One-to-One Mentoring Network and also a consultant pediatrician practicing in the UK. And today I am so pleased to introduce Dr. Maimunat, who is one of our USA partners. She's also a mentor of One-to-One Mentoring Network. So it will be very interesting to get her take on the US mentoring picture. And I'm going to leave her to introduce herself. So Maimunat, if you can introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers.
Absolutely, Susan. Thank you for having me, first of all, on this platform. And good afternoon, good evening, everyone, regardless of where you're listening from. So my name is Maimunat Alex-Adeomi. I'm one of the mentors with One2One Mentoring Network, as well as a key partner, primarily based in the US. And my role is to help bring the US perspective as we deal with the same challenges as in regards to underserved populations, or what we call ethnic minorities, here in the diaspora especially. And in terms of my background, I'm a primary care physician and global health expert. I currently own my own consulting firm, so I focus on capacity building, program implementation, and leadership development. So once again, it's a pleasure being on. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Maimunat. I mean, you sent me your bio and very impressive. You are a very busy lady. And I'm really looking forward, and I'm sure my listeners and viewers look forward to hearing more about what you do. But can you tell us a little bit about your role in One-to-One?
Great question. So One2One, when One2One started, it was a privilege for me to have been one of the founding key partners, where we helped establish some of the guidelines, rules, responsibilities. I remember then having to draft SOPs and policies and documentation. But that was really great because it helped us who had already aligned with the vision for One-to-One Mentoring Network, either by virtue of our own experiences being on the receiving end, or needing mentorship, or finding gaps in mentorship, and being part of offering a solution to it was really great. And then now going to the other end of being a mentor and having been assigned to a mentee and being able to now deploy those resources and tools that had been developed to help enhance a mentoring relationship was helpful. I was assigned to, my first mentee, I remember, was a medical student in the UK. And it was great to be able to bridge that gap with, even though we lived and worked in different parts of the ocean, one was able to bring one's background. I am trained and practiced most of my practicing years in Nigeria and Ghana. So able to bring some of that perspective from an underserved community and population. And then also now having lived and worked here in a developed world, to be able to see the stark differences, but then at the same time where there were opportunities for cross-learning and cross-sharing. And now my role has evolved to primarily focusing on the mentorship aspect of things, but then saying how to think strategically about expanding one-to-one mentorship beyond the UK.
Yeah. And that's definitely work that I'm really looking forward to engaging with our US partners. It's very interesting, isn't it? Where when it comes to mentoring, and particularly one-to-one, because I think what we really are very good at is career mentoring. And the fact that your experience was unique in the sense that you were on the other side of the pond as a US partner, but a mentor, and having a mentee who was based in the UK. I mean, how were there any challenges in your opinion? Because mentoring really, it's about getting the right mentor who will walk by you, isn't it? Walk on your side to ensure you're establishing your goals. But basically, it's really down to the mentee to share the aspects of mentoring that they need and how they feel that they can achieve the goals with the help of the mentor. And I will always say that, honestly, mentoring, you don't have to be in the same country as your mentor. What are your thoughts, particularly with you experiencing, having been in that unique position of working with a UK-based mentee whilst you are based in the US?
I think that's a loaded question, and I would unpack it just to be able to address, certain parts of it. I would say the first thing when you talked about like challenges and then of course where the opportunities were. The challenge was, and I do a lot of mentoring with my alma mater, the University of Aberdeen, as well as University of Ilorin Medical School. So one of the initial challenges that might appear as a challenge, but really it's an opportunity in disguise, is because you're not physically there. It feels like there are limited opportunities to connect. But now with the advent of technology and virtual platforms, look at us having this recording with a podcasting platform. It has just opened doors to, like, my mentee didn't have to wait to find a UK-based physician or somebody who had area of interest for her in order to be able to tap into the mentoring experience. So now the opportunity therein that came out of that was there is still a need for in-person or face-to-face interactions if possible. That just enhances and enriches the entire mentorship experience. But the beauty of mentorship is, yes, it's one-to-one with one person, but you are also assessing the mentor's network. So I was able to say, I have colleagues, I have friends who practice in the UK and practice in your location, and you might be able to engage with them. Now you get to explore and tap into that resource without necessarily burdening them, so to speak, for the entire mentorship experience. So I think that was one of the things that also emerged from this, that mentorship is much more robust. It's thinking and looking outside of the box and then being able to see that, look, even if I don't have this person here with me physically, I'm able to engage with them virtually, but tap into other resources and their own network that they might have physically, which only enhances the overall mentorship experience. So that's one of the things I would say it as it has expanded what mentorship means and truly is.
Yeah, I can't emphasize it enough. Network is so important. And I think a quality mentoring relationship, I wouldn't use the word judge, maybe it's a strong word, but I think that if you have a mentor and they have a good network, as a mentee, it's actually, there's a higher probability that you would prosper, you would flourish.
Absolutely.
Because it's not just about that, what the mentor is saying and how the mentor is guiding, but then the mentor is also providing those amazing and then exceptional opportunities to tap into the network. And that's our highlight is, and I'm sure you agree with me, Maimuna, because it's all about you being as generous as you can as a mentor and ensuring that what are the networks that you have that your mentee can tap into it.
Yes. And I'll say another advantage of that, which you had touched on, is the ability to be able to engage in cross-sector, cross-location, and shared learning, which again really expands not just your network, but your knowledge, your capacity, and your ability to have impact, if that's truly one of the things you are pursuing in your mentorship experience.
I mean, Dr. Maimuna, our viewers and our listeners would like to know you as a person, I'm sure. And I know you have such an illustrious career, and I can't wait for us to talk about your career journey. So as you look back at your career journey, what would you say would be the defining moments of your life that got you to this particular point?
That's a very interesting question, because if you look back, you see I made a face where you said illustrious. I'm like, well, I don't know about that. It's definitely been it's definitely been a long, not linear journey. But I think what it has done for me is it has expanded not just my network, but my thinking on what it means to be a professional and the space I occupy in this world and this time where I am. So like I said, I'm a primary care physician, global health practitioner. I trained in Nigeria, was practicing. There's this part of the training where you have to be sent to a community when you complete medical school and waiting for your full licensure to go work in various communities and all. I just got inundated and found myself getting apathetic at the fact that I was working in a resource-limited setting and I couldn't do anything. A patient comes to you, snake bites, there's no anti-snake venom. You watch them just succumb to their complications. There's nothing you can do. A patient has cholera, they come, they have to go get IV fluids because you have to start pumping them as you're looking for treatment options and all of that, and they cannot get it. It's either you put your own money down or you leave that place to go get it. Or people come, there is no electricity. I remember having to pull a retained placenta within a community with no surgical gloves, no electronic, and no electricity, no blood bank, no transportation, nothing. So I just had this almost pivotal moment in where I said, I cannot continue to practice and live in this setting like this without trying to make a change. So I went to pursue a master's in the UK then at the University of Aberdeen. But then everybody was doing a master's in public health. And I said I wanted to do more because I wanted to influence healthcare upstream. So I did an MBA in healthcare management. So I combined an MBA and MPH. And there opened my, at that point, I didn't even know because there was nobody who was doing anything like that. So it was me just trying to chart a new path, but knowing what the end goal was to influence healthcare upstream, to make health better, not just sitting one-on-one with the patient and getting frustrated with what I couldn't do. So as I was there, it just opened my eyes to understand healthcare administration, management, the business side of things, and then of course the public health. And I still didn't understand the concept of global health, but I just knew thinking about population health. So I finished my master's, got married, moved to Ghana to go work. And I remember my thesis then for my master's was comparing the expanded program on immunization in Nigeria and Ghana, some sort of comparative analysis. At that time, I didn't even know I was going to move and live in Ghana. So it was interesting that I was able to take some of those lessons then. But while I was working there, the same thing. I'm always drawn to primary care settings, but it was again the limitations. So I was working in the Upper East region of Ghana, Bolgatanga, working in the Kids Medical Center, where, and I was, interestingly, I was about 6 months pregnant then. And I would go in the morning to see patients, and I would have scores of patients where between like 8 a.m. and 2 p.m., I would see about 60 patients. So I'll leave with this long line of patients, but I was already physically exhausted, burnt out. I know we'll probably talk about like resilience and maybe lessons learned along. Again, that same, how do we influence the system so that we can better organize healthcare services? People have access to healthcare services. You have enough providers who are not just trained, but they are equipped to be able to provide services. Was what now took me on a fellowship in global health with Global Health Corps then. So I had come to the US to do my fellowship with Partners in Health and got the opportunity to do a global health effectiveness training at the Harvard School of Public Health. So my journey has not been linear, like I said, but it has always been driven by trying to find a solution to what plagued us at that time. And even though not necessarily understanding what the path would be, because there was that need to find answers when opportunities came, I was able to seize those opportunities to be better. So now I focus really more on health systems, how to strengthen health systems from the various aspects. The late Dr. Paul Farmer, who is known as one of the godfathers of global health, defined this very simple format for thinking about the health systems. The World Health Organization has what we call the 6 building blocks of the healthcare system. But I'll use Dr. Paul Farmer's model because it's very simplified. It talks about the 4 main S's for the health system. The staff, which includes both your clinical and non-clinical staff. Stuff, your equipment, supplies. Space, which is your facilities, and then the systems. So all of those 4 things have to be working in concert for you to have
to align.
system, and they have to be aligned. So for me, that's what I've now focused the past, where I've deviated from core clinical practice to really focusing on how to work through projects, to initiatives, to strategic planning, leadership development, all of those aspects, to make those 4 components really work in concert to build health systems so that patients don't have to die because of lack of access to anti-snake venom, or they die because they bleed out on the table because there is no electricity or anything like that.
Okay, so I can see, I really am hearing you're a very solutions-driven person.
Yes.
And I can also hear the passion in your voice. You know, when you're talking about health systems, you're talking about public health. I can hear that passion. I'm just curious because you are based in the US, and in terms of particularly looking at those four things.
Yeah.
Obviously, when we look around the world, you know, places that need those solutions will be developing countries, isn't it? So is there any connection at all with Africa or with some of these developing countries?
Oh,
or
absolutely. And one notion I would like to correct is, you know, when you said a lot of these things happen in developing countries, or like the term we mostly use now is resource limited settings, or, you know, low and middle income countries. It's really not the case. As you can tell, almost every health system has its ups and downs. You know, with the single payer in the NHS, you have your challenges with wait times and all. But overall, when you look at health indices, the UK is doing much, much better than other countries. The US, interestingly, has one of the highest spending on healthcare in the world, but worse health outcomes. So a lot of this focusing on health system is also applicable here.
Also applicable.
And that is where the whole concept of equity and equality comes into play, which is also one of the focus areas that I work on is where is, you know, we call maternal health the bellwether of healthy healthcare system. So when you look at maternal health and maternal indices, it gives you an indication of what the healthcare system is like. The US has one of the worst maternal health indices of any quote unquote developed nation or resource rich setting. So there's inequity and imbalance, and the health system isn't even functioning. Another thing about health systems, and that correcting the notion, when COVID happened, it exposed gaps in various healthcare systems.
Underbelly. Yeah.
So this work is not just for quote unquote developing countries, it's everywhere because you also want to optimize the resources that are available, make sure that your health outcomes match the funding and resources that are put into the system.
Yeah. So I'm just looking at the bio. There are certain things that you are doing. Are you working for yourself at the moment?
Currently, yes, I am.
If you can tell us a little bit about what specific your organization or your company is about. I think we're very interested in knowing more specifically.
Yes. So I never imagined in this, again, very interesting journey that I've been on that I'll be an entrepreneur. But it was born out of a need to also achieve some sort of work-life balance, but take an extension of all I've done in terms of, you know, like I said, health system strengthening, capacity building, leadership development. Those three core things are what I do now with my consulting firms, both in the US as well as in Nigeria, working to serve not just the continent of Africa, but underserved institutions as well. Because a lot of the gaps that we saw, I mentioned COVID, what COVID did, where it decimated and showed that there were gaps in health systems. So there has been this accelerated need and drive to continue to build health systems. So I work as a consultant with other entities, governments, and other private institutions to help build capacity for whether healthcare institutions build capacity in order to be able to implement health solutions or support them in leadership development, because that's also a huge gap that we see when we think about all of the funds and resources that have been invested in global health over the years, but we still see gaps. Not seeing enough return on investment is because we haven't also addressed leadership gaps in leading those initiatives and leading institutions, and then also taking on my almost 20 years of program implementation and training and capacity building to also provide training services. We're talking about Ghana. So I was in Ghana in August, and I'm part of the medical advisors for an organization called United Vessels of Law. And part of their health advisors, I help focus on maternal newborn health. So I did some training on essential newborn care, with midwives in, it's called Mansa Memorial Hospital outside of the Kumasi area. So I do that in terms of training and capacity building as well.
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting. So now I actually understand why you are saying that your journey hasn't been linear at all. You know, but I mean, one of the big things that has come out is about the fact that you're a very solutions-driven person. I can hear the passion in your voice. You're also very knowledgeable. I like the fact that you were brave. You know, there's also bravery where you said something, to carve your path. And it takes bravery to carve one's path when you decided that you do and combine an MBA and an MPH. I mean, you're looking at a master's in business administration and a master's in public health. I don't know how you got the guts to do it, but it takes a great
I don't know
person.
either. I probably was deluded.
Honestly, and I can imagine that you had to, and we can talk about work-life balance, but my goodness, you have so many beautiful nuggets. There's so many different aspects of the mentoring. It's all about a career foundation. It's about confidence. It's about breaking glass ceilings. It's about coming out of your comfort zone. It's about taking the bull by the horns. It's about entrepreneurship. It's about a career journey. It's about life chapters because you're a mother. So I cannot emphasize the, beauty of mentorship, about when people have a mentor, and it's about getting to know who your mentor is, and what they bring to the table. And I'm really hoping that our mentees who are watching, and even our mentors, because it's all about lifelong learning. So we finish learning. There are so many different things. You are inspiring me as you speak. I'm a doctor, but I'm also an entrepreneur. Perhaps not in a huge, big scale, but I don't know what's going to happen even, because I'm thinking even in the area of my entrepreneurship, very gradually that's going to scale up, and the tools and the skills that are needed for that. And even listening to you is really inspiring me. And I'm sure our brand ambassador and producer listening in the background is probably an equally inspired. And I think she's going to probably say that to you when we finish. But no, thank you so much. I will still maintain that it's been and it is still an illustrious career. And
I will take your word for it.
Maintain, will maintain that. It's beautiful, and I'm really inspired, honestly. And we are so honored to have you as one of our mentors, in the network.
No, I
What
think
would
I
you
just want
say?
to add this before your next question
Okay.
is you're too kind, far too kind with your words, but I would say you are an inspiration.
Oh, thank you.
When I was approached by my very good friend Uju, it's interesting background with Uju. We went to the same medical school. We share the same birthday. So we've been like, friends/sisters over the years. And she's like, oh, there's this group she belongs to. She thinks I would be good. At that time, I was still finding myself in terms of what else I wanted to do outside of just one job or one profession. And One2One Mentoring Network just gave that, and you were very focused on the vision. So it wasn't even hard to be sold on the vision. So I will tell you that you are the inspiring one. You've made a lot happen. And I'm sure there are so many people, including me, who would look back and say, yes, there were many things they dared to do just by virtue of you building that platform. One thing I would add to it, maybe we'll get to it later, but part of that charting the path or building new ways sometimes is out of nothing else to do. There's nothing available. There's this saying that when you get there and there's no seat at the table, build your own table. That is scary. And many times you fail, but focus is on failing forward and thinking beyond yourself. So just wanted to add those others.
Yeah, I agree. Build your own table, carve your path. I think that minimizes this whole idea of imposter syndrome. We had a mentee for the series 4, the conversation 4, and she was so inspirational, very young, one of our mentees. And she was using things like, life and achieving something is a marathon and not a sprint. And for a young girl starting on her career journey, she had so much wisdom. And I feel so blessed because I learn. So yes, I may be a mentor, I may be the founder, but I learn a lot from our mentees. I learn a lot from my colleagues. I learn a lot from the mentors. And because, like I said, it's all about lifelong learning, and we never stop learning, do we?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Can you just name or tell us some of the key people that you say helped you along your way, along this journey?
Yeah, there have been many, and I think listing people, I might not even do justice to everyone who has helped shaped my journey in one form or the other. But one thing I'll say is like my family, they've been instrumental. My mom, my spouse. There's this funny story of when then I was working in Ghana. I had a 6-month-old, and I was just applying because that was when I was on maternity leave from working in the Upper East region of Ghana. And I knew I didn't want to go back there with my baby because they were ready to give me an apartment and everything, but I couldn't find a daycare that I felt would be suitable in that area. So I was beginning to look at, opportunities in Accra, the capital city. And at that point, I was just not too sure. And I still till date don't remember applying for that Global Health Core Fellowship program, but I just remember seeing in my email, oh, congratulations, you have this interview for Global Health Core. and let us know when you'll be available. Went through the interview and then I got the position. This was based in the US. I was in Accra. I had a 6-month-old baby. And, they told me about what the fellowship would entail, and I knew it was not going to be possible to take my baby. So I was like, no. My mom, who is an astute professional, currently retired right now, raised us as a single mom, taught me the power of just drive and vision. I didn't even tell her at that point in time. But my spouse said something. He's like, why don't you just go and see what this is about? This is outside of the box. This is you thinking beyond, but you are always looking at how to influence health systems. Why don't you just go give it a try? He gave me that confidence where he said, if you go and you don't like it, it's okay to come back.
Wow.
But I don't want you to not try it. And I was like,
Wow.
no, this is my first child. I advise people to be there, take care of their child and all that. Then my mom, who was in Nigeria then, now told me and said, I'm going to take care of your child, except you tell me you don't trust me to take care of your child.
That's
And we
right.
talk about sacrifices along the journey. That's one of those
That's
sacrifices.
right.
So my son, who was like 2 months shy of being 7 months old, I traveled to Nigeria, dropped him off with my mom, and embarked on this journey. But I'll tell you that singular step I took changed the trajectory of how I started thinking about my life as a professional. That's when I got introduced to the late Dr. Paul Farmer and the philosophy of global health. I read Mountains Beyond Mountains. And if you've not read it, I would advise mentees.
Oh my God. Let me write it down. Mountains Beyond
Mountains
Mountains.
Beyond Mountains.
Wow.
It's a book by Tracy Kidder talking about the life and journey of Dr. Paul Farmer. There's also a documentary called Bending the Arc. Those things opened my eyes to who I wanted to be as a professional and my journey, and that is what changed my trajectory. But I know if not for those 2 key people, I would not have made that decision to go. So those are key people. Along the way, my siblings have also been, because again, when people tell you, we will support you, take this step, that gives you the confidence. So it takes a village to do anything.
Wow.
I've had mentors like Dr. Nana Danso,
mentoring,
who would coach me. I often tell her, I said, almost every professional journey I've had, she was there. She connected me to her network because then we were living in the same apartment. She's a US trained, she's Ghanaian born, Harvard trained physician and all, who had come back home to Ghana to give back, and we were neighbors. So that day we were going for the Ghana licensing exams and we happened to, we were neighbors, so we drove together and that's how we became close. So when I got my Ghana license and I was looking for a job, I was like, I want something. I don't want to be more heavily focused on clinical, still do some sort of like healthcare administration. She was like, I know this company. She got me my first job in AfriKids and it was an email. She sent them an email, resume.
Network again. Network.
Almost everywhere along the journey, she's been there as a sounding board. Even when I face challenges, help me read through this email or help me talk through this experience. I've gathered other mentors along the way. One thing I've also done is, by the grace of God, opportunities have come my way to invest in my own leadership development and journey. So I've engaged in fellowships, I've engaged in programs that I had the privilege of being part of, and I took those opportunities. McKinsey Black Executive Leadership Program, Boardroom Africa Leadership Masterclass, Women Leadership Journey, all of those. And it's exposure. So people have exposed me to platforms that have further expanded my network. And that's one of the things I love to do. Continue to just share those platforms, because along the way, I also learn. So those will be key people. And there are way too many to mention, but these are just some that come front of my mind.
We definitely need to plan one-to-one. I think it's high time. It's probably just way, way, way overdue. We need to plan some kind of summit, because we have such an amazing caliber of mentors in the network. And yes, we're doing these things. We're having the mentoring conversations. We do these webinars, we go on radio show. But I think there has to be a point where we all come together in a sort of summit, a really proper summit, and just present some of these nuggets, get it recorded as a legacy. Because I would not be surprised that following this podcast and webinar, there might be some requests from some of our mentees for you to, even if it means doing some form of informal mentoring, because I just can see the quality. I feel the quality. I see the quality. I am so inspired by you. And I'm going to have to also I will make an appointment for us to have a chat. Looking at my own entrepreneurial journey. So I'm going to stop. When it comes, I'm seeing the opportunities. You know, when they say SWOT, I'm seeing the opportunities, and I'm definitely in
Yes.
the point of my life
It's funny.
where
I almost
obviously,
often always tell
yeah,
mentees or people I engage with, I'm like, you have to do a SWOT analysis of yourself. What's
yeah,
the vision
yeah,
and where do you, and most people think,
exactly,
oh, SWOT is like, you're doing a project. I was
yeah,
like, no, on
yeah.
yourself, you're a project.
On yourself.
You are,
Exactly. Like taking
you,
stock, isn't it?
yes, you're
Yeah.
taking
And
stock.
seeing where in the network
Yes,
can we,
yes,
sometimes we give, but sometimes also you need to take stock, take a step back and say, okay, where can I tap in the network? Can I tap some support, some of the resources? And I'm
absolutely.
learning that I'm really, really, even that is becoming, it's being reiterated just from the discussion and the conversation that we have. Let's talk about barriers. When you are talking, okay, as you're speaking, somebody, and we are, I don't know, I mean, Emma will probably have a little chuckle. I always bring my age up. Okay. I'm not going to say how old I am, but I'm somewhere in the fifth decade. Okay. I'm
You're
not
younger
ashamed and
at
embarrassed
heart.
about it. Sometimes Emma just cuts these things out. I'll leave her to decide what she wants to do. I'm not embarrassed about my age. Okay. But when people see us or hear us, they may think that, oh, they had it easy,
Mm,
especially the younger generation as they come up. Because now, the younger generation, some of them want things very fast. They don't want the marathon, they want the sprint.
yeah.
They want it to be quick. They see the parents, they see the success, and they think it just took very little time to get there. But we know that it hasn't been easy. So
Yeah.
if you can take us to some of the barriers that you've come up against
Mhm.
and how you overcame them.
Yeah. And I think this is a good thing to want to address with, the newer generations. And
Yeah.
there are two sides to it. They are the tried and tested principles of hard work, you know, time, lifelong learning, and all of those things. There's also the reality of technology and that we're living in a time that none of us have witnessed before. With the
Ever
rise of
anticipated.
technology and artificial
Right.
intelligence and
Yeah.
all of those things,
Yeah.
the speed at
Yeah.
which we could do some things
Yeah.
that took us weeks or months to do before is taking you
Yes.
minutes or days. It's the reality. So I think it's important to be able to understand that, which a part of the SWOT analysis, right, is like, these are the opportunities we have here. There are threats with this, but you have to kind of like just take stock. So it's important to do that. So knowing that some of those tried and tested principles would always apply. So some challenges that, of course, is there will be a time when you are too young to do something, and there will be another time when you are too old to do something. And either way, it's a challenge.
Another nugget.
There would always be that. For me, I remember going through my training and all, I was one of the youngest in class. So that was always a challenge because it was like,
Mhm.
oh, you're too
Mm.
young. Many times they're like, we want to see the doctor. And then the nurse is like, that's the doctor. They're like, is that not the nurse? So I've faced a lot of challenges, which is funny because different sides of the spectrum, right? Now, some people are like, oh, maybe you're too old to do like a fellowship program. So I was like, really? Are you
Yes.
kidding? But anyways, I digress, is just taking that as an opportunity to see where maybe there's stuff that you yourself can improve on or find another way, because you don't take away from the end goal. So for me, how I overcame some of those barriers initially when I was considered too young or I wasn't taken seriously.
Sure.
Strike one, you're a female. Strike two, you look young.
That's
Then
right.
strike three,
Yes.
you are actually young. All of those things is easy to be offended by those things, but instead is to see how to navigate those things with some sort of complexity. There's this whole concept where they said between the stimulus and the reaction is the pause. And when you take that pause to try to navigate, okay, what do I want to get out of this? So in those instances where I need to now provide care to this patient or this individual, the family thinks, oh, this person is the nurse and all. At the end of the day, who am I primarily responsible for? The patient. If I get upset or, I get dismissed, that is not going to happen.
Focus.
So I'm going to have to redirect. I didn't always get it then because I was young, but I'm like, sometimes I got it. But in hindsight, I was like, okay, I wish I knew that, what I know now. Because at
Mm.
the end of it, when you put what the focus is on, don't derail from that. So between the stimulus and the reaction is the pause. And then being somebody who is in diaspora, one of the added challenges you face, a person of color, you are
Yeah.
an immigrant who has an accent. And then
Yeah.
you have all of this experience, but it doesn't necessarily translate to where you are. And you have to defend yourself or It's again between the stimulus and the reaction. Take it as a challenge to want to continue to build yourself. But then you
That's
have to
right.
understand, and maybe when we talk about resilience, part
Yeah.
of resilience
Yeah.
is you adopt a growth mindset, right? I want to grow. What do I learn from this experience? But then you also have to establish hard boundaries. What are the things that I'm not necessarily going to be able to change, but what else can I do to still achieve what I need to achieve? If I'm in a toxic environment, you alone cannot necessarily fight it, but how do you establish hard boundaries so that you are not consumed by that toxicity because you are thinking
That's right.
big picture?
That's
I want
right.
to influence the system. So am I able to have different ways of developing self-compassion for myself, relying on my tribe and my community to give me the feel that I need to go handle that? Or if I can't, then maybe remove myself from that situation and find another place to build. That is something else. So
That's right.
the challenges have been myriad. It's based on, again, time points. But one of the
Yeah.
main things is understanding the big picture, taking stock, being kind to yourself, adopting a growth mindset in between, understanding hard boundaries. Those are not usually easy, but
Mm-hmm.
understanding adopting,
Mm-hmm.
establishing those hard
Mm-hmm.
boundaries. And
Yeah.
everything takes time.
Yeah. It takes time. It takes
Everything
time.
takes time. So
Yeah.
give
Yeah.
yourself grace, give yourself
Time.
patience,
Yeah.
and always
Yeah.
rely on the community. There's this concept of having your personal board of advisors, people who keep you grounded, people who push you, because you will not always be at your best tip top. Think about if you've not done anything in your life, pick up a piece of paper and think about people who you call your board of advisors, who understand your career
Mhm.
aspirations, who understand your
Yeah.
personal goals, your vision, who you want to be, who know you, and just map them out. Because when you get to critical points, those are the people you would rely on to guide you through
Yeah.
that.
It's being intentional, isn't it?
Very
And
intentional.
I'm hearing that it's about who are in your networks. And the networks
Yes.
is not just about your career networks, it's also about family, who keeps your community really.
Yes.
And
Your
very
faith,
important
your
to have that
spirituality, all of
grounding,
those
your
things.
faith,
Yes.
your
Yes.
friendships,
Yes.
relationships, especially with you. It was that the key people that really got you on this path that you are on, a
Yes.
supportive other half and a parent.
Yes.
Very important because again, being women, from of African origin, one of the main things is family, and especially
Yes.
when you are a woman who's a mother who's just had a child,
Absolutely.
um, to have that strong backing shows the strong family values also that surround you.
Yeah.
But I will also add about knowing who you are,
You have to.
especially when you are in the diaspora,
Yes.
because it's about who validates you. You have to be in a position where you can feel validated yourself inside you. You know your strengths,
Yeah.
you know what you are capable of, and you don't
Yeah.
need anyone else to validate you. You know that when you occupy a space, you're occupying a space because you know that you have to be in that space. Unless you don't have to be in that space and
Which
somebody
is
pushed you
understanding those
prematurely,
boundaries, right? Yes.
prematurely.
Yeah.
But if you know that that space is yours, I remember when I first started writing, in fact, my very, very first book, Special Brains, because the
Mm-hmm.
way I write, I do combined fiction, and that's a very unique way. It's a lot of
Okay.
doctors don't write like that. We tend to write factual, when
Yeah.
we are in new
Just
research
hey,
or we
it's
write
the
factual
science.
things. Yeah. So obviously, this is me as a doctor combining fiction and helping a parent and a patient to understand a medical concept, but I needed to use the imagination. Now I remember somebody asking me saying that, "Oh, I understand about the factual bit of your book, but
Mm.
who wrote the imaginary bit?" I was
Well,
I was really stumped. I was like, okay.
good thing.
And it wasn't because I was female or my race. So this was because I was a doctor. Because they look at doctors as we are very factual people and a bit limited in the area of
Straight
imagination,
line.
maybe.
Yes. Yes.
Exactly. And I had to take that beautiful thing that you said about the stimulus, the pause
The
between
reaction. Yes. The pause.
the
Yes.
reaction and the stimulus. I had to take a pause and I had to look at the bigger picture and I said to myself, I have written this book. I
Take
am
that away.
proud of the fact that I've written this book. The book has gone on to do very well. From that was birthed other books, including Some people, I mean, how did you even get a book deal? And I've not had just one book deal. I've got a number of book deals. And
Yeah.
they just wonder how that was done. So I had to come to a point saying to myself, I am happy about that skill that I
Yeah.
have, that it's being showcased because that's my achievement. Those days you can't even say you could cheat because there was ChatGPT or
That's what I'm saying. Those are the
or
times when
somebody
you don't even
writing for
have
me,
all of like the technology or a ghostwriter or something. Like you look back
Exactly.
and say,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
I
It
did
was
this.
coming
Yes.
from here,
Yeah.
and I had to really, so I really agree with you, this thing about the pause, the reaction
Yeah.
and the stimulus. You don't hurry and make an impulsive and get offended.
Yes. Yeah.
Who are you? As long as you have that confidence in yourself, that's what that matters. And I'm
Yeah.
hoping that our mentees or our listeners and viewers who are actually engaging with us will
Mm-hmm.
really, really engage with what we are saying, because a
Absolutely.
lot of people have very, very similar experience
Yes.
in the diaspora.
Absolutely. And to add to what you said, there's this saying where they often tell people, oh, you are enough.
Mm.
You should be here. You should occupy this space. And all of those things are great and should be the mantra. Don't let it
Yeah,
limit you from growing and expanding. Hence the growth
yes,
mindset. I am enough, but I can be more. But
exactly.
it's still about me and that focus on how
Your
I want to
validation.
heal. And again, it's always when you have a purpose that is greater than you, there's usually very little that can limit you. You would be your own self-limiting person. You would most likely be the only one who will self-sabotage when you are thinking of something beyond yourself. If your limit is I want to, as a physician, I want to make money, or because I want to be prestigious. You would make those things eventually, but you would not think outside of. But once you begin to step beyond just your own needs and you think beyond you, the possibilities are limitless.
Endless. Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Particularly for our mentees listening, let's talk about resilience.
Mhm.
And resilience is definitely something that one needs, particularly when you are embarking on your career. What
Yes.
what will be your comments if we can, share your thoughts about how one can develop resilience, particularly in the diaspora. Our children, we can't say they are in the diaspora. They're actually born in
This is
this.
yeah.
We
Yeah.
are in the diaspora.
Yeah.
So let's talk about resilience and the importance of developing that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I kind of like touched on some of the steps to developing or building resilience. But really, what is
Mm.
resilience? We throw the word around, we talk
Mm.
about it. And most times when you think resilience, you're thinking, oh, you are tough, you are bravado, yeah, this is not necessarily that. It's just basically you having that mental and emotional capacity to be able to navigate challenges, because challenges will come regardless. And a lot of times it's not just challenges because of your race, your gender, your ethnicity. It might even be that, like you said, you are a physician and you wrote a book and then they are thinking, did you think
Who wrote the other bit?
exactly who wrote the other piece? It could be anything. Even your kids will challenge you. Your partner will challenge you. You will challenge yourself when you don't want to do something. So there would always be challenges. So that the ability mentally and emotionally to be able to navigate those challenges, to be able to adapt to change. Change is the only constant. So you
Yeah.
have to be willing and able to adapt to change. And then also being able to just recover from setbacks, because setbacks would happen.
Mm.
If you are going to embark on anything, there will be setbacks. But the ability to, the business term, failing forward is where growth happens.
The bounce
Success
back.
that you see is millions of failures. So the ability to be able to recover and bounce back from setbacks without burning out, that is resilience, those things. There's this
Burnout. Yeah.
there's this lady, her name is, I think it's called Wanda. I don't remember her full name now. She used to be the previous, I think, CEO of Essence magazine. She's like of African origins. She's American and all that. But there's this video I watched where she said she became a failure recovery specialist, where she gave herself the ability to fail like 5 times a day. So that if she failed once, she didn't get stuck by it. Like, oh, maybe I sent this email and then this happened. That can ruin your whole day. But she gave herself that day. Okay, that was one. Okay, till she had gotten to 5 a day before she kind of like gave up. That's one of the way to build. So resilience is really a muscle. You have to build yourself to be able to understand that, okay, there's this setback. How do I recover from it? How do I adapt to change? How am I able to navigate, challenges and all of that? And there are a lot of tools, or at least practices, some of which I mentioned earlier. Adopting a growth mindset. Okay, this failure doesn't define me. What can I learn from this? This is a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you can probably attest to that even with your first book, there were things you probably learned, but if you didn't write that first one, you will not have a second one
Of
or
course.
a third or a. So sometimes you just have to start to learn from it. You have to set boundaries. We talked about hard boundaries. One way to build resilience is know when you need to refuel and recharge so that you can face and navigate the challenge the next day or the next time. Set hard
That's true.
boundaries. Some of it is also protecting your own emotional and personal space, but understand where maybe you are in a toxic environment and it's not going to change. Resilience is when you know when to bow out. It's not powering through and sacrificing yourself.
Exactly. Very important. Very,
It's
very
also
important.
developing that self-compassion for yourself. Oh, okay, I messed up. It's okay. How do I improve on it? That is how you
Okay.
build resilience. And then you
Yeah.
practice active recovery. So it's almost like a muscle. Okay, this didn't work. How do I, bounce back from it? How do I adapt to
Mm-hmm.
change? Invest in
Mm-hmm.
yourself, learning, development resources. Now, with a lot of, virtual and free resources, you have no excuse not
Yeah.
to address areas. When you've done your SWOT analysis, you see your strengths, you see your weaknesses, opportunities, threats, work to
Great.
address
Yeah.
those things.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I really like the concept of that people, because people look at SWOT and look at systems, apply SWOT to systems, but having the sort of, yeah, I mean, how about myself? Having
How
that
about
almost
myself?
like a
Yes.
reflection of
Yeah.
where all those things are. And we've talked about, we've almost gotten into the situation where we need to come to the natural work-life balance, isn't it? We're very busy professionals and entrepreneurs. What would you say what are your interests outside work and how do you juggle the work-life balance?
Work-life balance. So for me, it's as a person of faith, my faith is very important to me. So
Mhm.
I actively volunteer in church. My husband and I, we work with middle schoolers as part of the youth
Mhm.
group. We volunteer also with like children's church. That's fun because we're like, okay, we
Mhm.
get to engage with this 18-month to 4-year-olds and then send them home after 2 hours. But by then we're like, ooh, this last Sunday, we were working and the person we took over from was like, oh, she's helping the kids develop fine motor skills because now she has experience with working in preschool. So we had them stringing beads. And it was so funny
Mhm.
because I was able to like apply my medical clinical knowledge to that. But it was like a fun thing. My sons even were able to help. But understanding that this was part of helping them achieve their developmental milestones, even though it was in a church setting, was just really eye-opening. I am a Rotarian, so I do a lot of work. I am
Mhm.
part of the board of the International Fellowship of Healthcare Professionals. I'm also a technical advisor. We call the cadre of technical advisors supporting with projects. So it's important to know who you are and know your why, like you said earlier. And when you identify that early, sometimes it takes us a lifetime to understand who we are. But if you sort of identify who you are, what drives you and all, it would shape almost everything else you do outside of your core profession because your profession is just one aspect of you. But then you would realize that there's a common theme of thread. And I think for me, it's like service and impact. So all of these things I do, I got till now, I don't know how I got on the board of my son's high school as part of the Parent Teacher Student Association board. But, doing things like organizing staff appreciation, heading the staff hospitality. It
Mhm.
sounds like it's a lot, but there's a common theme that weaves through them. Now, in terms of work-life balance, to your question, somebody once told me, one thing about mentorship, sometimes you can actually learn from people you are not necessarily in direct contact with, or you've met one
Yeah,
person once, you get a nugget from them. That's it.
that's right.
You
Yeah.
don't always think your mentor has to be physically in front of you. You guys are engaging on a one-on-one. Somebody can even be an informal mentor stuff. So one of the people I call informal mentor, I'm not even connected with her in a while. She was this leading anesthesiologist, Nigerian, working on a global, scale and all. So I asked her, I was like, how do you juggle? She said something. She's like, whether you like it or not. And this is not even about being a female or anything. In life, you will juggle many balls. You just need to know when you need to set some balls aside so that you can effectively juggle the ones you have. The problem is where we feel pick up all the balls, then at the end of the day, you cannot juggle either one well and you drop all of the balls. You would always juggle balls. Just know when to set some balls aside and pick it up. And that's what work-life
That's
balance
right.
is. There will be a time where Your family needs you because they're in your formative years. You might have to scale back on maybe extracurricular or volunteer opportunities. There's a time where you are actively building, then you are focusing on work and your pay. But I've also learned this very interesting concept. It's called the Ikigai philosophy. It's Japanese. It talks about your passion, your purpose, your mission, and your vocation. And at the core of it is your Ikigai, like who you are as a person. So your vocation, right, is what you are paid to do, what you are good at. Your passion, what you are good at, what people need from you. Your job is, so it's like the Ikigai is basically at the core of all of that is who you are as a person. And it can be interconnected, and you don't have to find it from one thing. So sometimes people get burnt out or people get overwhelmed because they expect their job to give them everything. No, that's just one aspect of you. Why don't you also delve into other things? But there should be this common thread that weaves them, and that's your purpose. That's your Ikigai. That's what you are here on earth for. And when your time is done, you should be able to say whether you're a person of faith or not. You say, I did my best. I worked with what I was given, and I made a difference.
Yeah. And my favorite saying, you've come to a point of self-actualization.
Self-actualization.
Where you've gotten to the stage where it's not like you have arrived, but you've done your whole self-analysis and
The
ticked
cards
the
you've been dealt
boxes
with,
where you
make the
are
best
in
of it.
some point of contentment.
Yes.
And contentment obviously doesn't necessarily mean that you've gone. It's not to do with money.
Yes.
But it's about how you feel in yourself.
Yeah.
That's self-actualization, isn't it?
Self-actualization.
Yeah. That's really lovely. Okay. But I still want to know, is there any downtime, like leisure, in terms of what do you do?
Oh, that's a good one.
Listening to music, going on for a
yeah.
job.
I love
Because we need
to.
to talk about the fun things,
Oh yeah. So for me,
What do you
downtime,
think?
and
What do you
I
do?
think that's where the whole,
Yeah.
juggling balls and all of that. For
Yeah.
leisure, I love to read, though I haven't read a
Oh,
book in a
you're a
while.
reader.
Yes, I love to read. I haven't actually read a physical book in a while. I do a lot of
Yeah.
reading online, so
Yeah.
snippets or experts of stuff. I love social media. So sometimes I find myself, so at night when everybody's sleeping, I give myself a window of like 1-2 hours. Sometimes I go down the rabbit hole, but I love to just absorb things
Just
because that's
browse.
where I'm
Yeah.
learning. And
Yeah.
one thing takes you to another thing, and you're like, this is
Yeah.
interesting. And then you're reading. So a lot of my reading now has been virtual reading, electronic books, not really
I
full
like
books.
the hard copies. I like the
I
hard
do
copies in
love,
my
like,
hands. Yeah.
everywhere in my house. This is
Yeah.
my son's room, but
Yeah.
you can see a bookshelf.
Yeah.
Almost everywhere we have in the
Yeah.
house, you would see and
Good books.
continue
I
to
love
collect
books.
books.
I love
So
books.
I want to be able to like spend time. So I always have at least 1 or 2 books by my nightstand so that the day when I just pick it up and I read. One thing that
What's
is
your
also
favorite
helpful
genre?
is,
Sorry
yes.
to interrupt. What
No,
are any favorite genres, writers, or
I
your
love sort of like self-improvement books, but I also love like,
do?
fiction, thriller. It really depends. One of my favorite writers is Michelle Obama, just because she's
So you
very
like the
real.
factual
I like the factual, but
autobiographical?
I like kind
Yes.
of like the storyline type. So she's very, very real. I remember her book Becoming. When I read it, I was like, oh my goodness, this is kind of like who I am. So she talked about the
Yeah.
different pieces. So, when we talk about lifelong learning, we're essentially becoming every step of the way, becoming a professional, becoming this, becoming, you're just on that continuous journey of growth and development. So you're never really done active learning. I do love Brene Brown talks a lot about, the feels, the emotions. Sometimes I think maybe I should have been a psychologist. So all of those kind of like topics I love. I do love movies. I love biopics. I love stories that talk about people building resilience and all. And I love fun things. I wouldn't say the typical romantic comedies. I just love stuff that you escape to another world and just chill. So those are the things for me. I don't love cooking, but I love food to eat. So
You are a
I
foodie.
love
You're a
trying
foodie.
out. So I am a foodie to the
That's
core. I
lovely. That's
love
really good.
trying different cuisines and all of that stuff. So for me, if you would there's something that is my guilty pleasure, is trying different foods. One thing I do, because I haven't traveled as much this year, but because of my work in global health and all that, I've traveled a lot, which is one of my passions. And everywhere I go, I make it a point of duty to research what like the cuisine is and something to try, and I make it a point of contact to try that thing. I also research like 2 to 3, whatever the tourist attraction is. And as long as I have the ability to, I give myself half a day or one day, even on a business journey to
Business
explore,
trip.
just
That's a
because I
very
love to
good. Yeah,
explore.
very good. So yeah, because you acquire some very good knowledge, isn't
Oh,
it?
yes. When you
When you are
travel,
going
you
to
learn.
museums
Yes.
and galleries. I love
Yes.
I love going to art
Yeah.
galleries, museums.
Yes.
I just love the
Yes.
smell of museums, archaeology, Yeah.
Oh,
And
stuff,
then
right?
yeah. When books, somehow I'm drawn to female writers. Most of the time when
Mm,
I'm picking a book, I'm drawn to female writers and female African writers as well. I make
absolutely.
sure I patronize their books. When I go to a bookstore, if there's a new female writer,
We're going to go for that.
a book release, well, unless it's not good, I will
Mm.
normally patronize it. Yeah. Okay. So we are very nearly getting to the end. It's really, really been very interesting. And I feel like we could just talk for hours.
Go on and on, right?
I'm really enjoying this. Yes.
Likewise, likewise.
What would you say would be your most outstanding achievement in the last, we'll say the last, with you, you've been doing a lot of achievements. So
Mm.
I would say in the last 2 years, what would you say would be your most outstanding achievement and why have you chosen that?
That's a very difficult question to answer because
I'm not surprised. So that's
when
why I
when
didn't say
you
5 years.
and I say that honestly, not even from a place of accomplishment, but really from a
Hmm.
place, what do I personally value as an
In your
accomplishment
opinion,
versus what is the impact that that has had? That's why
that's right.
maybe I'm struggling with like the answer. But I would
Hmm.
say in the last 2 years, mostly even 1 year, I had to make that decision where I it wasn't I'd always been thinking of the entrepreneurial journey. I wasn't quite ready. If
Hmm.
anybody ever told me I'll be an entrepreneur, I'll say never. But part of it was also accelerated with this whole USAID funding cuts and all of that. And I just thought, look, I'm not going to rely on a larger system or this larger vehicle to try to find a solution. So it accelerated some of that. So I'll say that is one of the greater accomplishments, because some days when I sit and then people are like, I got invited September of this year to come speak on one of the side events during the UN General Assembly meeting. And I had to keep pinching myself, like, how did I get there? And
How
what
did you
platform
get
was
there?
I on?
Wow.
It was on the
Wow.
platform of what I had built. Right.
Wow.
And I thought, I know normally when you are working with an organization, not like because there's anything wrong in that, there are usually limitations, what you can say, but there's a freedom in when you go representing yourself and what you've built. And it
That's
was
right.
different. And
That's
for
right.
me, I was like, wow, this thing that looked like it came from a project I was doing as part of my leadership fellowship. And people were asking me like, oh, can you please do this with us? And I was like, no, it's just my project. And after a while, I saw back, it could actually be a thing, and it formed its own entity and company. And then people reaching out like, oh, can you do this? Can you do that? And it's something from one of my former colleagues I worked with at the American Academy of Pediatrics. We were just chatting and I was laughing. I told her that sometimes I think I'm making things up. And she told me something. She's like, there's nothing that was built today that wasn't made up. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's one of the things that I am very proud of.
Proud
Secondly,
of.
is this conscious pivot was also because I wanted to spend more time with, I have two boys, 15. Actually, my oldest just turned 15 last week, and an 11-year-old. And growing with boys in the diaspora, especially Black men,
Yeah.
is you have to be
Yeah.
fully present.
I've got two sons as well. So yeah, I
So you get
compare.
what it's like. But now I've had more time with them one-on-one, and I can see by leaps and bounds how they have grown, not because they didn't have that. They have, a wonderful father and all of that stuff. It's just I see them and how they are growing and maturing and developing and the role I play in all of that. And I'm like, I'm grateful for the privilege and the opportunity to do that, because I don't take it for granted that it's not easy. Because you have to pay your bills, you have to have health insurance and all of that stuff. So if you aren't actively earning, your partner is earning, or, so you have to be careful about the entrepreneurial journey as well. That's, it doesn't affect your family's financial picture. So for me, I would say that this is not to sound cliche. I've seen how my boys have really grown and expanded in this phase where they are. And for me, it's a huge accomplishment when I
Wow.
see how they navigate
Yeah.
the world.
Yeah. Very good. So if people want to find out what you're doing. Do you have a website that you can tell our
Yes.
listeners?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. So for my US-based company, that is a lot smaller because I focus more on the consulting arm of things. But for my Nigerian-based company, which is really a global company, it's called Women Leading Change. And why that's very intentional is W plus men
Yeah.
leading change. So W plus MEN change. Because the idea is W plus men leading change. And the idea is it takes both women and men. I'm still a huge proponent of gender-based leadership or female empowerment.
That's right.
We are raising, or maybe I'm just biased because I have boys, but we've spent a generation teaching female and empowering females and neglecting the men. And
Men.
we have to figure out, how to catch up. So that's really the vision for the name, but the idea is doing all of the things we talked about: strategic planning, leadership
Yeah.
development, and also people can reach me on that website. I'm
Yeah.
also on LinkedIn. Women Leading Change has its own page on LinkedIn as well as my own personal page.
That's right.
And we have like our social media handles. I know our social media manager handles that, but if anybody really needs to reach out to me or learn about our work, those would be the ways to
That would
engage.
be excellent. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So as we near the end of this conversation, what advice would you give to your younger self? Because obviously there are younger professionals and
Yeah.
mentees listening or watching this. What advice would you give to your younger self?
One of the things I talk about and why I'm very passionate about mentorship is I wish I had mentors early.
There you
Because
go.
for me, early on, maybe there are some detours that I took or lessons I learned that I probably would not have had to, but I still do not, because I'm a firm believer in the journey is what it was meant to be, because it shapes us. So what I would have told my younger self is actively seek mentors. Don't wait for them to come to you.
Mentor early.
Early, yes. It will save you a lot of like headache, and it will save you a lot. And mentorship is supposed to help you see beyond what you yourself can see where you are. There's this adage, I think it's Yoruba proverb, but it says something that what a young person can see standing, an older person can see it sitting down or something like that. So there's always
It makes sense.
yes, that thing of like experience and wisdom that you can glean from people. And it's not just about age. You can have a mentor who is even younger than you, but they just have more experience in a particular field
In a
or an
particular
interest.
field. Yeah, I
So
agree.
open
I
yourself to
agree.
that. So that's one thing I would
Agree.
tell my younger self. Two is also tell my younger self that it's okay to take risks. Calculated risks, right? But it's okay to take risks because it will pay off in the end. But just make sure that you have an adequate support system that can help you take those risks, and that it's okay to quote and unquote fail. Just focus on failing forward. Because if you are so crippled by the fear of failure, you will not do anything. And there are some things that I wish maybe like my organizations are not like started earlier. I still feel I started at the right time just because of the feedback. But I'm like, I wonder if I took, because I have notes 2020 or 2019 where I had names, what I wanted to do. And I'm like, I could have just, started something, just tested the waters, because I would have more experience by now. And whatever it is you do, whether you rely on faith or some sort of higher power greater than you, just know that that is a force that will be very important to tap into and lean into when, like they say, when life is life. And just have a sense of faith and an anchor that holds you. And that's one thing that I would say to younger people, and I'll say to my younger self, like your faith will carry you in ways you didn't think possible. So continuing to invest in growing your faith.
Wow. I mean, I actually, these are such beautiful nuggets, and we really, really are ending on a good note. I don't actually need to even summarize anything and add more to what you have just said. Look, Dr. Maimuna, thank you so much. This has been a very inspiring conversation. I am so inspired. Every time I have a conversation, this is the fourth conversation out of six. And I learned something new. I just want to thank you so much for making time to come on the show.
Thank you
And
for
I'm sure our mentees and our mentors will learn a lot from just listening to the conversation that we just had.
I hope so.
Yes, I'm sure. I hope viewers and listeners, you have managed to extract some lovely, lovely golden and platinum nuggets from Dr. Maimunat this evening. And again, you can reach out to One2One Mentoring for those who are not yet members of our organization. What we do and do well is mentoring, and you can find us at www.one, O-N-E, 2, the number 2, O-N-E, mentoring.com. If you put One2One Mentoring, we tend to come up on the rankings. Our network shows up. So do definitely engage with us. I have really benefited from mentoring myself in my career, and I can't emphasize enough how mentoring can actually support you as a person as well as your career progress. So again, without much ado, thank you so much, and I'm hoping to see you all at the next conversation. Ciao.
Bye.